What's up, guys? Brady Fugel here, coming at you with a review for the new Spiritbox album Tsunami Sea, released this past Friday, March 7th. You know, it's funny, as far as the modern metalcore landscape goes, as far as for my tastes and bands that I actually find myself enjoying, it's pretty slim pickings, not gonna lie. At least as far as bands that have emerged within the last 5 to 10 years, but Spiritbox has got to be like the front-running band for me as far as newer bands like that really interest me and I find myself enjoying. I think the biggest thing that separates Spiritbox from their peers is just their overall emphasis on emotion and atmosphere and the overall just soundscapes that their music creates. And there are several things that play into that, whether it be Courtney LaPlante's vocals or the very rich production and kind of studio-generated ambiance that the band utilizes very well. But that being said, I mean, you never really know what to expect as far as a new band from this kind of modern metalcore style and group of bands because, I mean, especially with Spiritbox, where it is their second album, but they've came out with 2 EPs since their last record, 2021's Eternal Blue, which is a record I very much enjoyed, but my point here is I really didn't know if Spiritbox was going to continue with that exact same style, maybe experiment either on the heavy side or the melodic side, the more pop-esque side that is somewhat present in their music. There's still a lot of directions that they could have went with this record, but as far as the singles go, the 4 singles that were released, that did kind of seem like an amalgamation of all of those different ideas because they sounded like familiar Spiritbox territory, if anything, maybe slightly pushing it on the heavy side and slightly pushing it on the more pop electronic side, which overall is a goal and a sound that I think works pretty well for them on this album. Because the singles like Soft Spine and No Loss, No Love and some of the album cuts like Black Rainbow, for instance, do kind of have traces of familiar Spiritbox heaviness, but a little bit pushed into even heavier territory a little bit, and also still having some new ideas sprinkled in, like on Black Rainbow, kind of Courtney LaPlante's delivery in those verses with her clean vocals, how they're kind of almost robotic and droning. With how both skilled and praised she is as a clean vocalist, I thought that delivery was actually very well executed and something that adds a lot to the song, because if it was just her flexing how great her vocals are the whole time without kind of incorporating new or different ideas, I think the album would get a bit more stale. Same with those quiet parts on No Loss, No Love that kind of reappear throughout the song. It just shows that she prioritizes the overall feeling and vibe of the song as a whole, rather than just prioritizing how good she sounds and being like, look at how good of a vocalist I am. Could she do that and probably pull it off pretty well? Yeah, probably. But I really appreciate that she didn't. And sort of on the same line here as far as the band as a whole goes, I also really respect, and I've said this in my track reviews of the singles so far, just how heavy and intense some of these songs are, especially the songs I just mentioned, the heavier tracks. Because Spiritbox, without question, could easily just go full-on Octane, butt rock, Evanescence, Flyleaf style, and probably blow the fuck up. And they're choosing not to do that. They're choosing to make genuinely heavy metalcore and at times just hardcore influenced metal music. Much like Eternal Blue and their EPs following, I think this album has an impeccable balance between really heavy and melodic and accessible. Now, as far as more individual tracks on here that I should single out, the opening track, Fata Morgana, not sure how to pronounce it, is one of my favorites on here. The background canvas on Spotify, fittingly, is these black and white images of these waves crashing in like an ocean, or sea, I guess, fitting the title of the album. But seeing those images and listening to that main riff of this song, it fits so perfectly. That's like the exact imagery that riff gives me. And the transitions between those cascading heavy sections and that really atmospheric, spacious, kind of Deftonesy chorus is just awesome. There's that quiet break in the bridge section. I just feel like this song executes all the emotions that it goes for perfectly. It's dark and dramatic and melancholic, but somehow just packed with emotion all at the same time, and it executes these mood swings very well. For me, though, the album really picks up steam in the second half, because A Haven with Two Faces is another huge highlight for me. This is another song that just has this encapsulating atmosphere to it, because it's dominated by these like really spacious and serene sounding. I think they're acoustic guitars or just picked guitars. Whether they take prominence in parts like the intro or you hear them kind of distantly in the background of the chorus. This is a song that just I turn on and it takes me away in like the most amazing way. No Loss, No Love, I already talked about, one of the heaviest songs on here that also does have some really cool mood swings and has those quiet parts, like I mentioned earlier, that really add to the heaviness and creates this cool contrast. And quite surprisingly, despite it being one of the most poppy songs on here and most electronic influenced songs on here, I love the fourth single, Crystal Roses. That's just another song that just packs so many layers and layers of emotion, and it's mostly sent home by these just walls of like studio generated ambiance. Like this song just sounds so layered and full, but so easy on the ears at the same time, and that's a really hard balance to strike. And Courtney LaPlante's vocals, they sound kind of synthesized and computerized. I actually think that adds a lot to the song, especially when listening to this album track by track. Like this song provides like a breather and an atmospheric, like, it just kind of floats around you. It's such a cool song. And then Ride the Wave has like this sludgy, downtrodden angst to it the whole time that's driven by this really like pacing mid-tempo bounce that it has. The melodies in this track are serene yet unsettling at the same time, whether that's those clean guitars or, again, Courtney's vocals. The song then reaches this climax in the bridge with this crushing breakdown and Courtney LaPlante's vicious screams that sound a bit more distant in the mix. Again, this song just brings a unique atmosphere to this album. And I also really like the closing track on here, Deep End. The melodies used in this song sound sort of grieving and mournful, yet they have like this optimism to them at the same time. Again, the clean guitars and the verses really do that well, and Courtney's very soulful vocals in that chorus too. And all of these tracks that I've just mentioned, this array of tracks at the end of the album, they all have just such amazing elements of atmosphere in the background just from the studio ambiance, like I mentioned. So serious hats off to the band on this second half of the album. I think the second half is bordering on flawless. And the first half is good too. That's not taking much away from the first half, but I do think some of the more monolithic and repetitive ideas as far as Spiritbox's catalog as a whole is on this first half. In particular, Perfect Soul, Keep Sweet, and the title track, they all kind of feel like they have the same formula and the same kind of ideas with it, which are also formulas and ideas that Spiritbox has used most prominently on Eternal Blue. Like, just listen to all three of these songs, and just to be clear, I'm not saying these songs are bad. I actually enjoy all three of them, and they all have some great melodies to them, but especially being so close together in the track list, I just feel like it does make the album feel a little bit repetitive, at least at this point. Because they do pretty much all have the same structure and formula, like sort of genty riff intro and atmospheric sort of calmer verses and full sounding chorus, and it gets a little heavier for the bridge. If you go back and listen to Eternal Blue and you listen to songs like Halcyon and Circle With Me, it's kind of the same ideas. Overall, I mean, I think they still work on here. I wish they were kind of spaced out a bit more in the track listing, just because, again, listening to them so close together in the full album context, it did make it, to me, feel a little bit repetitive. But I understand not a lot of people probably listen to albums track by track anymore, so it might just be me, it might just be, an outdated criticism, but the most skippable track for me on this album is the title track, just because I feel like it contributes the least amount of unique ideas to the album. And the main riff is kind of just Architect's Doomsday slowed down. I don't even know if I can count that as a criticism because so many bands have done that, but yeah, I mean, overall though, I'm really, really enjoying this album. Production-wise, it is pretty much flawless, if I'm being honest. For one, the actual instruments sound amazing. I think the guitar tone on here is the perfect balance between modern and slightly synthesized, but still having a good bite to it. The drums sound thick and muscular. Courtney LaPlante's vocal production on here is amazing, whether it's her harsh vocals, which sound just absolutely vicious, or her cleans, which very much take up space in the mix and sound spacious, yet they still bring like the perfect amount of atmosphere and precision, which of course ties into her amazing vocal performance on here. I would actually argue that her screams in particular sound better than ever. The more I listen to the album and the singles, especially No Loss, No Love, the more that really jumped out at me, just how much her screams have improved, especially her high screams. And of course, her clean vocals are fucking great. I mean, do I really even need to say that? And one more overarching compliment for this album is to actually producer Dan Bronstein, just because of how he incorporates this ambiance and these layers and layers of sound into these songs without making them sound overproduced. Like, notice how he's not using prominent strings or brass sections or pianos or synthesizers. It's just ambiance and sound. When producers add those prominent digital instruments and sound effects like I just mentioned, that's a one-way ticket to making an overproduced album, or overall just having these extra layers as kind of embellishments for boring music. But the sound effects on here and the ambiance that these songs generate actually really adds to the music. Crystal Roses is the best example of that, but honestly, all of these songs have elements of it, even the heavier tracks like Soft Spine. Like, just listen to that unsettling white noise in the intro. That's a perfect setup for how the song sounds. So I'm loving this album, although I think for their next album or EP or whatever they put out next, I would encourage the band to explore a little bit more, because these slight deviations on this album, like Crystal Roses, like those acoustic pick guitars on Haven with Two Faces, the vocal experiments on Black Rainbow, moments like that felt like noticeable leaps forward for the band's style. I think the balance on this album is great, but on the next one, I would like to see more of that. But all that being said, I'm very happy for Spiritbox for this album. I really hope that this takes them even further to stardom and being one of the forefront bands in the modern metal and modern metalcore scene. I'm going to score this album a 27 out of 30. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have heard this album, definitely comment your thoughts below. Please hit the subscribe button for more rock and metal album reviews, and I got my Instagram, Spotify, and Threads links in the description of the video. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.